Okay, so in this week's video, we're going to work on Chapter 11 of the Adobe Photoshop Classroom in a book. Now, Chapter 11 deals with working with video. So the first thing we want to do is we want to go up to our file and browse in Bridge and click on that. And you can see that my bridge actually is, if I go back to lessons here, I want to go to Chapter 11 on lessons and double click on that to open it up. And we see all of this stuff down here that's in this folder. And here we have end MP4. This is actually a video. And this is going to be the video that we will be making here. And I have the sound off so it doesn't interfere. But we're going to create this video actually in Photoshop. And this is just a day at the beach video that includes video from the phone and pictures from the phone. So in order to work on that, we want to go ahead and double click on the NPSD here because we're going to look at that for a second. Okay, so when this opens up, you'll notice that we have all the layers over here, and this is pretty much the finished movie here. Now we really can't watch it in the regular Photoshop window here, or window format. So we're going to go up to the top here to Windows, and we're going to go down to Timeline and click on that. And once you click on Timeline, you'll notice that you have a timeline that opens up down here. And let me just zoom in a little bit here on this timeline to make it a little bit bigger so that you can see it all. So this is our timeline, and we have a couple things going on here. We have a play button here. When we click on the play button, that actually plays through the timeline, and you see it starts to move across the timeline here. The playhead is actually this thing right here, and this you can move. You can click and drag it to move through your video area there. And we have an image file. And let me just click the playhead back over here. This is actually an image file here. This particular one is a video file. So we have a couple different video files. And then we have a soundtrack down at the bottom here. And this is a song that you play on the audio track at the very bottom. We have a couple other buttons here. Down at the bottom here, we have a render video button right here. And that's this one right here. And then you have the current time here. So as you see that when I drag my playhead there, that the timeline changes here down at the bottom. And we have the frame rate, and most time it's 29.97, or a lot of times referred to as 30 frames a second. And this here is the slider so that you can control the size of the timeline here. So sometimes you want to make clips much bigger if you want to do some real fine tuning on a certain part of it. Other times you want to see the whole timeline so that you can figure out where you're going to go, or just do overall stuff to it. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to go ahead and start on a new video. Alright, so first we're going to create a space for us to work in. So I'm going to go ahead and close out this one here, and I'm just closing out this tab in Photoshop. I'm not closing out Photoshop, and I don't want to save it. And over here I want to go ahead and create new. And once I create new, I want to come up here to film and video right here at the top and click on that. And then we're going to go to HTV 720. That's what this is saved in. Normally you go to 1080p. Most of your stuff now will be 1080p. We're going to start with this preset here and click create. And that creates our new timeline. You notice that there's nothing here. There's nothing over in our layers. We just have a background there. And we want to go ahead and save that. So we're going to click on here, Save As. And this is going to open up our window here. And we want to go back to Lessons and then go to Lesson 11 and save it there. And I'm thinking that you probably just save it as untitled for right now. But well, let's give it a name. So I'm going to put Working. And click Save. That way I know it's mine. And the JPEG option comes up. Don't worry about that. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to come up here to the top and go ahead and select Motion Setup here. And that creates this motion setup. We already have a timeline. If you didn't have that, you would go back up to Window and make sure the timeline is clicked on. But what we want to do is we want to click on our Zoom tool, and we want to go ahead and put Fit Screen and fit the timeline to the screen. Now that's kind of big. I really want a little bit more of the timeline here, I think, to show. So I'm going to bring that on up, and I'm going to go ahead and put Fit Screen again. And there we go. So I have some working area in this timeline. Okay, so in the book it shows that it automatically creates 2 video tracks here in your timeline. Now my particular one did not when I opened it up, when I had the timeline there. So in order to work with that, what I can do is I can come on up here to layers and just go down to video layers and new video layers from file. I don't want to do that because I don't have a file, but new blank video layers. When I click on that, that's going to create 2 layers here. It's going to create layer 1 and an audio track. So now we have the same thing that the book is showing us up to this point. So now that we have our layers here, or in the timeline, we want to import some video, which is going to include some still and video into it. So there you got this little film strip right here and a down arrow, and you click on that and it says add media, and click on add media. And if it doesn't already come up, navigate to lesson 11 here, and you're going to click on the first one, which is number 1, and go down all the way down to the sunset, which is number 6, and we want to add in all of these assets here. So when we click to open now, you're going to see that once it opens up, that our layer now has all of these assets in it. And I'm going to reduce the size because you'll see that our layer is pretty big. You see that we have this whole thing going across here, and then we have something over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce the size down so that we can see everything. And here you can see that purple layers here are basically photos, and the blue layers are videos. So if I drag this on over, you see that I have a photo here, and then I have a video here, because you can see that it moves. And then when I come over to the photo, you see that nothing happens on these photos. Okay, and you see our photos are rather large compared to other things. Like this picture is rather large in here, so we're going to take care of that here in a minute. Now we still have this blank layer 1 at the beginning, which you can delete. Now you can see that it added all of our layers over here in this video group 1. When we close this down on our layer panel, we have video group 1. Let me bring this up a little bit bigger so that you can see that. Maybe a little bit wider here, make it easier for you to see. Now you notice that we still have this blank layer number 1 here. And we're really not going to use that, so you can go ahead and just press highlight it over in the layers panel and just press delete, and you see that we've gotten rid of that, and we just have our 6 clips that are imported. So if you're running into a problem where you have this extra layer, you don't know what you're going to do with it, just delete it. That was the blank layer that started out when we created all of our video group 1 and audio track here. Okay, so now the nice thing is that we have these layers over here, which we're used to in Photoshop, so we can see all of them. But we do want to go ahead and save this. So I'm going to go up to File here and just go down to Save Now, because I've already labeled it as a working. And just put Save. And we're good to go now. So as you can see here, we have clips that are different lengths and different times. So as we go through, we can see this is a rather long clip. And then over here, this is another long clip. So what we want to do is we want to make all these clips in this particular video. We want to make them all 3 seconds. Now, you wouldn't always do that. You would probably change, from both ends and select out the part of the clip that you want to keep, and you would do that by dragging this timeline marker here back and forth to see where you want to stop and where you want to begin the clip. Now, Photoshop is going to make it easy that these are all going to be 3 seconds, so we're going to reduce them all down to 3 seconds. So when you do that, you're just clipping off the end stuff. So when we reduce this one down 3 seconds, we're going to lose all of this stuff here. We'll just have the first 3 seconds of the video. So in order to do that, you want to make it a little bit easier on yourself. And I'm going to go ahead down here to the larger area. You can just drag the slider, but I find it a little easier to click on this and make it larger and smaller. And as I do, you can see that we have to drag back over because it's got rather big now. When I move my mouse to the end here, you see that that cursor changes. Here, it's pointing towards the side, the purple side, and as I come over here, it's pointing towards the blue side. So that means that when I click and drag, it's going to take away from the left video here. So I want to drag that until it's about 3 seconds. And again, as it gets bigger, as you zoom in more, it's easier to drag it to the exact time. When it's real small, it takes very small movements to lose a lot of time. So the larger it is, the easier it is to drag it to the exact 3 seconds. And now I'm going to click on this video here and come on over to the end and drag that back. And you see that shows you a preview, and it also has an end and duration. So we're looking for the end and duration. So we want the duration to be 3 seconds on this video too. The duration is the length of the video. The end is the length of the video, including the clip before. So you can either go for 6 seconds or a 3-second video. There we go, right there. And again, I'm going to do the same thing on the next clip. So I'm just going to click on that clip, come down to the end here, and it takes a minute to catch up. There we are. And I'm going to start dragging this one here. And it takes a little bit of time because a video clip is much larger than a photo in most cases. So I'll bring that down 3 seconds. I got that at 3:01. I'm going to leave it because I'm just a rebel. And again, now we got a photo here. So I'm going to do the same thing and just have to wait a second. You can also click if you want to go a little bit quicker. You can go ahead and just click on the layer right over here, and that automatically takes you to the next layer. So I'm going to drag this down to 3 seconds. And again, I'm looking at the duration number, 3 seconds. And then on the jumping, I'm going to click on that layer and come to the end and drag that down to 3 seconds. Oh, look, hit that perfect. And then now the sunset. Go ahead and adjust my control down at the bottom here to move my timeline over so I can see the end of this, and adjust this down to 3 seconds. Okay, so let's go back to our first image in this timeline here, and it's this one here. And you see that this image is rather large. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on this little arrow right here, and it says no motion. And what we want to do is we want to click on it and put pan and zoom. Now normally we use this to create motion within the picture, and you'll see that in a minute, but for right now we just want to resize this. So make sure that this is clicked on resize and zoom out, and then close it back down, and you'll see now that it's changed our image down to the correct size. Now if we play this, you see that we're actually moving. The image is actually moving, and we don't want that. We actually want the image to stay where it was at. So what you want to do is you want to click back into pan and zoom, click the down arrow, and select no motion. And what that did was that allowed the image to fill the frame and then not do the pan motion now. So we're sort of using a tool that's designed for one thing to help us out and just fill the frame rather quickly. Now at this point you could go ahead and save your work. So I'm just going to go up to File and just put Save, and that's automatically going to save it. And you saw that that lit up over here to saving. Okay, so what we're going to do next is we're going to create some text that's going to come across the screen here. And Photoshop is going to allow you to create text over the screen, but we do have to put it on a new video group here. So I press the down arrow and I'm going to click on new video group, and you see that we have a new layer here in our timeline. We also have a new layer up here in video group here, and I'm going to go to my horizontal text and click on that. Just select someplace over here close, and I'm going to go ahead and type in beach day, and I'm going to click on my move tool and drag this down here a little bit, and you see that it came out rather large because I had in my type tool, I think I had 550 already set in it, which I did. So I'm going to double click and highlight all of the beach day, and I'll bring that down. The book I think says 600 points. That looks kind of big to me, so I'm going to just go ahead and make it 500 points and see how that looks to me. And that looks a little better. So I'm going to go ahead and on the text tool, it looks good, everything's accepted, and move this on over, and that looks good. Now normally if you had done this and it was a different color in the text tool itself, you would click on this and you could change the color to whatever color you wanted. You could change it to black, or white is what we're going to keep it as, so I'll just put cancel, but you would put accept and that would change that color. So in order to make this move across the frame, we set up what's called keyframes. And by beach day, there's this little arrow, down arrow, and this shows you all of the options that you have. And we have what's called a transform option. And that allows us to move things across the frame. So if I click on the stopwatch, you'll see that it added a little diamond right there. So I'm going to put Command Z and undo that. And I'm actually going to bring this to the very beginning so that when I do click on transform, it will actually transform it to the very beginning. Now before I start moving this around, I want to make this clip the same length as this clip down here, the family clip. So the beach day I want to be the same as family. So I'm going to grab the end just like we did before, and I'm going to drag it to a duration of 3 seconds and let go. So now it's the same duration as the family. So on the transform, I'm going to click my stopwatch here, and that creates a keyframe. And I'm going to use my move tool, and I want it to start that keyframe so that the beach is just starting to pop in, like maybe right about there. And so that means that when this goes at the beginning, this is where that text is going to start. And I'm going to move over in time. I'm going to move to the end here. And I'm going to come back to 1 second inside of 3. So it'd be 2:29. So I'm 1 second inside of 3. And again, with my move tool, I'm just going to hold down my shift this time. And I'm going to grab beach and drag it across. Now, when you hold down shift, that keeps it in a straight line. So I want it to be in a straight line as it comes across. And I'll bring it all the way across here. And I'm going to bring my Y so it's just poking out right there. So now you're going to see that when it comes across here, that as I press play, when I press the play button here, you see that the beach day comes across there. Now that's kind of dark right now, so what I want to do is I want to change this to be a lighter opacity. So I make sure that that layer is highlighted. And I'm going to go on over to my opacity. I'm going to bring that down to about 50%, and you see that that's much lighter. So now as this comes across, you can see that beach day plays across there. Alright, so with this done, I'm just going to go ahead and close that up here so our timeline is back together. And I'm going to drag the timeline cursor over to the playhead here. So I want to drag it on over to the dog, and I want to click on the dog layer. And so what we're going to do is we're going to make this, we're going to add a tint to this. So the nice thing is that you can use all of Photoshop's adjustments here. So we go on over to the adjustments, and we're going to head on over till we find one that says black and white, which is right here. We're going to click on that, and that makes our black and white layer. So this creates a black and white effect on it, but we want a tint. So this little square right here, we're going to click on tint, and we're just going to keep that. It's a sepia tone tint. Now you can adjust that. You can click to change the tint color, but we want the sepia tone here. And as you drag the layer across, you see that that adds kind of a cool effect to the dog running up on the beach there. So that's how you can create effects on each one of these layers. Now notice that's a clip just to this dog at the beach layer, and they will automatically clip to each one that you select here. So that's adding a little adjustment there using the Photoshop adjustment panel here. Okay, so we actually want to add a couple more effects here. Now we've added one on the dog at the beach, and we want to go over here to these dogs, and it's just a still picture. And I want to make sure that layer is highlighted. And I'm going to click on this little arrow at the end here, and where it says no motion, I'm going to click on the drop down and click on zoom. And what I want to do is I want to zoom from this upper left corner here of that zoom grid, and it's going to zoom in, and I want to make sure that resize to fill canvas is selected, and we'll click on that, and you'll see that as we drag across here that this picture is zooming in. Now we want to make it a little bit larger, so what we're going to do is drop this arrow here, and we see our 2 keyframes, and we want to get to this last keyframe and click on that and go up to edit, and then go down to free transform. And over here we have the width at 87.2%. We want to make that 120, and then click OK. So now you can see that the zoom is much greater than it was before. And we'll just click that down arrow to get rid of those keyframes, and now we have zoomed into this picture. So for our last one, what we're going to do is we're going to move on over here to the jumping and bring our clip head, and we're actually going to bring it to the very end of this clip. So, and let me drag that onto the very clip there at 29:15. Yes, so we're at the very end of this clip. Now, sometimes it's a little easier to work from the where you want the clip to end up at. And so what we're going to do is we're going to use our move tool here, and we're just going to drag that clip straight down. Oops, let me get onto that clip. Oh, I think I just messed up my dog clip. So let me go Command Z. See how my dog clip changed there? Okay, now I'm on the jumping clip. So now I should be able to move that one, which I can. And let me get rid of this. So holding down the shift will keep it centered, which is what I did not do, which I shouldn't have done. There we are. So that's my end spot that I want this clip to be at when it gets to the end. So I'm going to press this down arrow here, and you see I made a couple mistakes, but easily rectified. And come on over to this position and start that clock. So that puts a keyframe here as to where I want it to end up. Now I'm going to move my clip to the beginning, or I'm going to move my playhead to the very beginning of this clip here. And this time I'm going to hold down my shift, and I'm going to drag the picture on up. And you see sometimes it delays a little bit because we are working with a lot of pixels here. Yeah, sorry, my mouse rolled off its pad there. So I can start it. I think I'll start it right about there. So now Photoshop has automatically added a keyframe here as to where it wants, or it thinks that I want to start, which is where I told it to start. So now when we look at the video, we see that the video moves on through until it gets to our jumper right at the very top. At this point, I want to go ahead and save my work, and I will click on save, and my work will be saved. So generally on videos, we want to add a transition so that when it goes from one clip to the other, it's just not this sudden jump here. So we're going to do that by clicking on this button here to move our playhead to the very first part of our scene here. And we have a transition, different transitions that we can use in Photoshop. So you want to drag to apply. So before we do that, we're going to change this transition. Now you have a drop down menu here where you can slide this on over, but we're just going to put 0.25 to make it exact, so it's a 1/4 second transition. And I'm going to click on the crossfade, and I'm going to bring it right between these two clips here. You just drag it down and drop it. And you notice that it has moved that clip over because it has to have a 1/4 of a second of one clip and a 1/4 of a second of the other clip overlap, so that makes the transition. So you can see this transition that we've created here. See how the transition has adjusted there. Now we have some sound coming from this particular one that you can hear, but we're not going to worry about that at the moment. And let me just mute that so we can watch the transition again. So it's a nice smooth transition. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to drag the crossfade on over to all the other ones here. And it will be the same duration that we set up before, 0.25. And you see that it makes that little symbol there, so you know that it's there. Now for the last part of this, we're going to drag this one here, crossfade there. For the last part, we're going to fade to black, and we're going to click on that and drag that to the very end here. And then we're going to bring this out to about 1/3 the duration. And what that's going to do is it's going to make a nice slow black fade out at the end there. And you see that's rather rough, but let's just play this through so we see what we've done here. We have a transition there, and we have another transition coming up where the dog's going to run in, transition to the very static picture here, and this very static picture here, and then a transition to our sunset, which we're going to adjust here, and it goes to fades to black, and it just continues to play over and over again. That's how we create transitions between our video clips to make it go from one to the other a little smoother. Okay, so the next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to add an audio track. We're going to want to add some music to this. So I come over to the audio track right here, this down arrow, and I'm going to click on that and put add audio. And we're going to add audio the same way that we added video here. So when we come in here, we see that a couple things are lit up. Now this is lit up and this lit up because that has audio in the video. The end one has audio, so that's lit up. What we want is we want the beat song MP3. We want to click on that and press open. Now you see that when this beat song comes here, that it is much longer than the track. So what you want to do is move your playhead, and you just come on over here and click in the timeline here and move your playhead to the end of the track and make sure that your audio track is still highlighted, which that one is, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to cut that. So that basically just clips this into two, so it's separated. Because it's right next to each other, you won't notice anything, but it is separated. And then we're going to click on this side and just press delete, and that's going to get rid of that audio track there. Now this little arrow right here, we want to click on that, and we want to have a fade in and a fade out. So for the fade in, we're just going to click on this and make it 3 seconds, so 3.00, and we're going to make it fade out for 5 seconds, 5.00. What that does now is that allows the music to fade out towards the end here and allows the music to come in. So if we press our back to start here, I'm going to go ahead and play it, and you'll hear the music fade in. And see how it fades in from a very low to a high. Now notice that when we get to these other ones, we have other music playing over top of it, or other noise from the video playing over top of that. So we're going to get rid of that right now. Alright, so in order to get rid of the sound on these two clips here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this little arrow right here, and you see that it has the duration and speed. But if we click on this sound, the audio part here, we can go down to mute audio, and that's going to mute it on for that clip. And I want to do the same thing with the dog at the beach. I want to go up to the video audio, click on the audio, and go ahead and mute audio on that. So now when I play the music, or when I play the video, you see that we've gotten rid of that sound that came in with our video. So that's how we mute sound on that. Alright, so the last thing we need to do is render out this project, and we do that by going up to File and Export and going down to Render Video right here. And we can also do it by pressing on this little arrow down here. So we'll go ahead and render out the video. And you can see that this comes up where it says working MVP. We can just change this to whatever you want to call it. So video-1, and we want to come down to the formats and presets here. We have presets over here, so these changes all these formats, and generally that's what you want to do. It makes it easier. Now this is set to YouTube HD video 1080, but we actually had a 720 video. If you remember at the beginning, that's what we set this up as, at 29.97 frames. So we want to click on that, have that there, and go ahead and just click to render this out. And now it's going to render out this video into a usable format for you to watch. And this can take some time, so don't worry if it is a slow march. So most of the time you just want to get up, go get yourself a cup of coffee or a drink or something, and relax, and then come back when it's done. And there you go, it's all processed and ready to go. So now we can just actually go over to that file. And I go up to my desktop where I have it, and lessons, and then lesson 11, and I have Beach Day MVP, and I can click on that, and we can start watching our beach day. And there's the video that we just made in Photoshop.